You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network and the John Fredericks Radio app. Thanks for being with us. TGIF, May 29th. Appreciate you joining us today. As always, of course, we're on Facebook Live. Our Open America Tour continues. Today we are in Spring Lake, New Jersey in Monmouth County, just up the shore from Cape May, where the politicians there were fraidy cats, and they do a lot of talking, but don't want to stand up to Governor Philip. You can't even say his name without getting things go up your spine. Murphy, the guy's a complete dictatorial whack job, but he's keeping the state shut down. And our Open America Tour continues. I got skewered yesterday on one of the blog media companies calling me out for this Open America Tour that I was divisive because I want to get people back to work. Now you're divisive because you want people to make a living and have a job and put food on the table because you're not part of their socialist agenda. The numbers from the CDC continue to come down. The best numbers are Georgia, Alabama, Florida. They've been open for a month now. They're building up herd immunity. Their deaths and hospitalizations continue to decline. But to these governors like Cuomo and Murphy, it doesn't matter because they have to justify a mail-in ballot. If they can get a mail-in ballot, they can take control and oust Trump. That's the ultimate goal. Great to have you with us. We're live again at the Starlight Cleaners. We're on Facebook Live. Also, great to have everybody with us today. I want to thank our hostess with the mostest, Toni Angelini Nagel. Yeah, she's been on my show many times. She's a business owner here. She owns 3 businesses in the same block. It's like if you play Monopoly, she owns the Petnor 3 squares. She can put hotels on them. She's our host here. And we're here at Starlight Cleaners, which has been ravaged by the shutdown. Toni, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me, John. Thank you for allowing me to represent the Jersey Shore and Job Creators Network. Of course, my day job, the most important role that I play is the Senior Director of Communications there, where we advocate for small businesses across the country. And it's really nice to have you in New Jersey. I wish we were here under better circumstances.
Right, exactly.
But, you're here, and that's all that counts.
Well, it is what it is, and I really appreciate your opening your business up for us. Also with us is a business owner, Bob Fahey. He's a restaurant owner here on the Jersey Shore. He owns Fahey Restaurant Group, which is he's got 3 locations, Asbury Park, Manasquan, and Lake Como. Also with me is State Assemblyman and Dr. Gerry Schaffenberger. Did I get that?
You got it. Yep.
Gerry Schaffenberger. He's a State Assemblyman, Republican in District 13. That's the Monmouth County area?
Monmouth County.
Monmouth County area. As you know, the Republicans in New Jersey not much better off than Virginia right now. They're down 52-28 in the House, 25-15 in the Senate, and they have to deal with Governor Whackjob, who basically shuts businesses down and says he'll open when he feels like it. It's almost surreal. Guys, I'm going to get to all this, but I've got to start with Toni on what is going on right now, the riots and the looting in Minnesota. You come from a long lineage of cops in your family, police officers, your dad for a long time, your brother also. And what we're seeing now in Minneapolis, where there's burning, there's looting, certainly what happened to Mr. Floyd is horrible. What is your take on this whole thing?
So you're right. I do come from a long lineage of police officers, and I have just more police officers I've had in my life than I could probably count. And they are all wonderful, upstanding citizens. And as the most pro-police person probably on the planet, when I see something like that happen in Minnesota, it puts my brother, who's in the NYPD, at risk because it makes him even more of a target than he was prior to this happening. I know enough to know that until we see the entire story, we can't jump to conclusions. But at some point, when there is a human being on the ground who is begging for the ability to breathe, if that is not being granted, something is very, very wrong. I did read last night that this police officer had 10 other violations against him for excessive force. And, something is wrong when a police officer is allowed to continue to be on the street and continue to be in those situations after 10 different incidents of excessive force. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy. The anarchists that have now gone into Minneapolis, who probably are, very far from home at this point, who are burning that city down, that's even more tragic. And quite frankly, I think that it's really incumbent upon the leadership of the city to step up and get a control of things, which, listen, nobody trains for this. Nobody's prepared for this. My heart goes out to the mayor, who is suddenly, thrust into this situation, but they've got to get a handle on it, and they're going to lose Minneapolis if they don't get ahead of this evening. There's no more time for them to fix it, and the case will sort itself out. But police officers represent the entire brotherhood every time they're on the force, and they need to keep that in mind when they are in these situations.
I think the perpetrator, the cop, the fact that there was 10 times, he had 10 violations of excessive force. Assemblyman Schaffenberger, probably after the 9th time, you might take a look at this guy. Don't you think?
You would think. How he slipped through the cracks all these years is staggering.
You look at that video, and that was just murder. He just murdered the guy, and the guy didn't do it. Some of it was cut out, but unless he was, but it doesn't matter what he did because he had him subdued. I'm not a cop or anything, but it looked to me like they had the guy completely subdued. He was in the handcuffs. Why would you be kneeling on your neck? Like, what was going through his head? It's bad.
Yeah. It's hopefully justice will be served.
I think in this instance it has to be. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you take this, it's the end of Amy Klobuchar. She has zero chance now of being on that VP ticket, and I actually thought she would be a formidable choice.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently she was involved when she was Attorney General in one of these cases and let the guy off. So that's the end of her.
Yeah.
I want to get to the small business in the state, and I'm going to start with Bob Fahey here, restaurant owner of the restaurant group Asbury Park. So I grew up in New Jersey back 60-something. So back in the day, that's where my father took me to the beach. We lived in Sayreville or Old Bridge. We take the bus down, but that was his thing, Asbury Park. That was before the riots, so a very long time ago. It dates my age. Also Manasquan, Lake Como. What is going on? How do you survive?
Well, John, first of all, thanks for coming down to the Jersey Shore to shed some light on our situation here. We're happy to have you, and thank you, Toni, for hosting this event. It's a disaster right now here for the small businesses down here. Not only here, across the country. My 3 restaurants have been shut down since March 16th, and obviously March 17th is a very important day for the restaurant bar industry, so that was a first shot in the gut. But not knowing how long this would go on for, we took it in stride. Here we are almost 3 months later, and we're still not in business. We're doing very little takeout, which equals about 10% of our normal revenue at best. We just lost Memorial Day weekend at the Jersey Shore, which is devastating to not only my industry, but the delis, the 7-Elevens, the bed and breakfasts, the tuxedo shops. And that's money that we can't get back. It's money that keeps the lights on in December, January, and February. And it keeps our staff employed year-round. Going into June, still not knowing anything, no guidance from the governor whatsoever for our industry. Has been really tough to plan ahead. And if we lose July 4th, it's going to be detrimental for years to come, I would say here. Yeah, not just next year. It could be, 18 months, 24 months until things kind of get back to normal.
So what is the governor's plan here? Does he understand me? You've talked to him. Somebody told me that he was supposed to get on a conference call with gym owners, and there was 200 people on the call, and he didn't show up. His chief of staff was there. Does this guy have any idea the havoc that he's wreaking, Assemblyman?
You know what? It's hard to figure out because the legislature really isn't kept in the loop the way we would like to be. We don't have the communication, at least, my colleagues don't. So it's very hard to tell who's advising him. He seems to be very insulated as far as, approachability for the legislature. And it's very frustrating. In fact, I came out with a plan. It's a little over 3 weeks now called Back to Work New Jersey, which would have opened up in 2 phases. Every business and even churches were included in that, organizations and entities like that. And the day after I announced it and released it, the governor announced forming a 9 subcommittee council on reopening to study reopening. Businesses can't wait that long. Every day there is another day closer to insolvency.
Start another task force, start another meeting.
Right.
Blue Ribbon Commission.
Yes.
Just
prolongs,
open.
It just prolongs.
And-
Just prolongs the
misery.
pain.
Yeah, it really
And
does.
people that are sitting on these committees, I've spoken to several of them, and they've all said they've had like 1 or 2 phone calls. Nothing has come of it. There's no real meat to this reopening plan. Assemblyman Schaffenberger presented a plan on your own accord, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you put that together, and it was extensive. It was thorough, and it gave small business owners a map to sort of follow on how to get back open.
And that's kind of what we need as a
Yeah.
small business. We need a guideline to follow, or some sort of target date. I mean, if they say tomorrow, okay, you can open up outside, we can do outside dining. Well, then I got to go buy tables and chairs and figure out a setup for the property, and figure out with the mayor of each of my municipalities what I can and can't do as far as the municipality laws go. So it's going to be a process.
So
once
do
it even
the
says that,
municipality laws how does that, you have a governor that has an edict, then you have municipalities, you have counties. Who rules?
the municipalities have to follow the
Yeah,
state laws.
this is a home rule state, so it's really with the
rule state.
municipalities. Yeah, which is not in my eyes, not a bad thing, because the smaller entities tend to be better run.
Right.
So, but what strikes me with the governor is that there's no sense of urgency with a small business owner, the small, medium, or even the large business owner, that I started working on my plan with my staff the very last week in March, very first week in April. So by the time the end of April, beginning of May came around, we had a finished plan. We were able to speak with the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and get real input from small business owners, how they can work within the confines of what needs to be done here. And we worked on it nonstop, and we had it ready. The governor doesn't seem to understand the sense of urgency that small businesses don't have the capital to ride out this tremendous wave that he's putting in front of them. So without that understanding, I think you're just going to languish here, and we just thought we're going to get through this together. People don't want to hear that anymore. They want to hear we're going to open, these are the rules, and we're going to get back to business.
But he has no time guideline set. Right.
No.
Nothing.
And most small businesses, I would say majority operate week to week.
Right.
The revenue that they make the week after pays for the bills from the week before.
So right now, you're both, a restaurant owners. Toni Angelini with us owns a restaurant right across the street called the Spring Lake Manor. We're here at her Cleaners in Starlight. We're with restaurant Bob Fahey, owns 3 restaurants, and also with State Assemblyman Dr. Gerry Schaffenberger, former freeholder, so he knows a little bit about local government. Tony's son just came in with the bagels, so that distracted me a minute. So nice
Breakfast
to see you
is here.
again.
Thank you.
I'll do that in a minute. As business owners, you have no idea. Like when I was in Cape May, they were saying, well, they're allowed to open. First it was June 1st, then he backed it up to May 27th. But like even the people there didn't know what it meant.
Right.
They didn't know what they could do other than hotels. I think they said, well, we think we can do 50% occupancy. And I'm like, why is a hotel at 50% occupancy? You're in your own room.
Right.
Like, how does that make any sense, Gerry?
Right.
I mean, how does that make sense?
You could be in a grocery store with 150 people, but 4 guys can't go play golf.
Right.
It's
There's too many
insane.
inconsistencies with this. It
That
really
was
is.
the
totally
thing that
insane.
set me off.
What?
It was the golf. When the governor announced that a foursome was now safe, as opposed to the day before when you could only tee off in a
Right.
twosome, I was
Right.
like, okay.
Yeah.
Why does our local, our
nickel and
state
diming
government
right there.
need to be involved in how many
and
people
how
are
you play
teeing
golf.
off?
It's
Yeah.
just it's an unbelievable situation. But so he's given you no guidance. Like as bad as Virginia is, we just went to phase 1, so you can do tables outside, 6 feet, whatever it is. But you guys don't even have that, right?
No,
so
nothing.
you can't even have a table outside.
No,
Not
not
yet.
yet. And it's not only no guidance for the owners. I've got 120 employees that are looking for guidance from me, and I can't give them anything. And some of them just got on unemployment about 2 weeks ago, so it's been really hard on them as well. And it's not just the owners; it's our staff that we really care deeply about.
And
Now,
the
let's get-
unemployment system was something that I know is very frustrating for a lot of people.
Yeah, in fact, my office has been overwhelmed with people who are having trouble with the unemployment system. And there's a lot of reasons. We have an antiquated computer system. It's 40 plus years old. To tell you how old it is, it was a language I learned in high school in the 70s. So that should tell you why we're so easily overwhelmed. And the staff is a little understaffed, so it's the perfect storm. And I'll get people calling my office in tears saying, listen, I'm a single mom. I depend on my salary, and I haven't had any money coming in for 6-7 weeks. So that, coupled with the lack of urgency with opening businesses, is really putting people in a very tough spot. And we're still working on people getting their unemployment benefits from March. And here we are staring down the barrel of June.
Assemblyman Schaffenberger, so let's start with you, and then I'm going to go around. Unemployment, there's some people making more money on unemployment than you're going to be able to pay them when they get back. When you are able to open, and you call them up and ask them to get back to work, and they say, well, why would I do that? I'm making $900 a week now. I only made $7, and I had to work my tail off. Why would they come back?
It's a big problem.
And then the law says you can send a letter, but then it pits you against your employee. Why would you do that?
Correct. Our employees are making more to stay home on unemployment than they would be making if I brought them back with the PPP loan, which I've offered every employee that chance to come back to work.
It's the new normal.
And about 4% said, yes, I'll be back to work.
Out of 120 people.
Correct. And
10.
now I've got a PPP loan that I am so nervous to even use, because the last thing a small business needs is for this free forgivable loan to kick in as a 1% loan that you need to pay back over 18 months. To add that to a normal mortgage or rent, it's disastrous. I mean, and especially at the Jersey Shore, when the summer months are the bread and butter of our income, to go from a fall, winter, somewhat spring, and then lose the whole summer and then go back to fall, winter, spring, right. It's devastating. It's devastating without any summer income.
Toni?
So one of the things that we advocated for at Job Creators Network was the extension of the PPP, because what we saw was happening was people like, my husband and I as well, who received PPP loans, now that clock started, that 8-week clock. Right. Well, we're not open. So why are you going to pay people to go sit across the street and stare at you? The wedding coordinator who's full-time has no weddings to coordinate. So Job Creators Network started pushing, and it did pass in the House yesterday. We'll see ultimately what the bill looks like, but that extends the time. It could be depending on who you talk to, the extension will vary, by a couple of weeks. And it gives small business owners until the end of the year to make it a forgivable to turn it into a grant, to make that loan.
That just makes sense. I mean, the money's gone to have people paying it back because you can't get employees to come to work because they're on unemployment, because they're making more money. I mean, the whole thing is theater of the absurd. All right, we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to be right back. We're in Spring Lake, New Jersey at the Starlight Cleaners, one of the shuttered businesses here. We'll be in New York City on Monday in the Belly of the Beast. The new Newsmax headquarters Tuesday, Wilmington. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network Open America Tour. Stay with us.